Xbox is looking to redeem their reputation in the next-gen console war, going all in on Game Pass to attempt to create the Netflix of gaming. Last console generation, Microsoft soundly lost with a rather out-of-touch marketing strategy. Instead of focusing on games themselves, the Xbox One was all about entertainment and peripherals. A bold strategy for a games console. This generation, they are taking the opposite approach, which seems to chart them to less of a laughingstock this time around and into a true competitor. Today, we're going to look at Xbox's rocky history. 2001, a simple time for gamers, where your choice of consoles was either the cinematic PlayStation 2 or the goofy family-friendly Nintendo GameCube. There was also the Sega Dreamcast, but that poor thing never had a chance. With a tag team marketing attack from Bill Gates and The Rock, Microsoft decided to throw their own unique console into the ring, the Xbox. With a little X on the top of it, the Xbox was essentially a PC as a gaming console, with Microsoft looking to appeal to a more serious and hardcore gamer, one who appreciated performance power and decidedly didn't stray away from violent action games. So essentially, the anti-Nintendo. The original Xbox released on November 15, 2001, and sold well initially, but as Microsoft often wants to do, they ramped up the intensity of their tactics to get their system in as many homes as possible. Within 5 months of its release, Microsoft slashed the price tag from $300 to $200, which, if you adjust for 20 years of inflation, is the same price as a Nintendo Switch today. The Xbox was so affordable as Microsoft were barely making a profit. But that didn't matter. They're Microsoft. They can spare a few million just to gain market share, which is an achievement in its own right as Xbox stands on the graves of many failed consoles. Other premium console systems had attempted to enter the market and failed miserably. Sega had been creating consoles since the 80s, almost 10 years before Sony had made the PlayStation 1. But their latest console, the Sega Dreamcast, didn't stand a chance against the sheer popularity of the PlayStation 2. The Dreamcast lacked any iconic games, EA's publisher support, and a DVD player, which at the time made the console look obsolete to its competitors. Clearly, just getting established into consumers' homes was a mighty accomplishment in an aggressive market. So, for Xbox to power their way in and not just survive, but actually thrive, showed just how impressive Microsoft's console and marketing strategy was. They had the strongest system, now made more affordable, but crucially, they had the blockbuster first-person shooter, Halo. At the time, shooter games were more popular on PC, as mouse and keyboard are a natural fit for the genre. Prior to Halo, FPS console games typically had GoldenEye-like controls, requiring you to stop movement to aim. Halo instead emulated the smoothness of PC controls whilst on your couch playing on a controller. Halo was the progenitor of FPS games on consoles, and not only that, the killer app that put Xbox on the map. Halo was famous for its local split-screen play and quickly built a reputation for its competitive multiplayer. Xbox's Halo became the badass alternative to the likes of Mario Kart and Smash Bros. Noticing the popularity, Microsoft made their next big innovative move: online play. When Microsoft were developing the Xbox, they knew that online would be a cornerstone of future gaming. So they developed the console to be able to handle online straight away by implementing a direct Ethernet port and an integrated hard drive into the console to handle the intense demands of online gaming. At the time, online gaming was an afterthought to other games consoles and was a hassle to set up. The Xbox instead was much easier. If you had a subscription, you could just plug it in and you were ready to play. No mucking about with annoying adapters or dial-up. Although PlayStation and the Dreamcast had toyed with online, the Xbox had perfected it. Featuring a unique gamer ID, friends lists, and easy communication, the Xbox had thought about how players would want to engage with online before they knew themselves. Players didn't want a random code to make a friend. They wanted to see if their friends were online and easily launch into a game with them. It was obvious that Xbox Live was the best online service, but it wasn't until Halo 2 released in 2004 that the Xbox fully utilized it. For the first time ever, players were able to lunge across the map with an energy sword or mow the enemy team with a warthog all around the world. But Halo 2 didn't just mark the beginning of online gaming for consoles, it also marked the rise of online gaming culture. Players were making actual mates online and connecting over these memorable moments. And with the rise of YouTube videos parodying these moments like Red vs. Blue, Halo was more than just a good FPS, it was a cultural phenomenon. When it came time for their next console, Microsoft looked to take their reputation for great online play to the next level with the Xbox 360, which aimed to set a new benchmark for online social play and establish their dominance over the online world. The 360 did everything the original Xbox did, but better. It was more powerful, the exclusives were better, and the online was even more refined. Once again, PlayStation and Nintendo's online weren't even close to the ease of 360's online. With the Wii, Nintendo barely put any effort into the online aspect, Sending friend requests felt primitive, and you couldn't even speak to your friends. PlayStation's online service lacked a party chat system to be able to get in contact with friends, and was way less reliable than Xbox Live. Unlike its competitors, the 360's user experience gave you all the tools you needed to easily hop into games with friends and foes, including many essential tools you probably expect in games today. I can't overstate how easy the 360 Online was. You could come home from school, flick on the 360, join a party with your friends, and then jump into a match on Halo 3, and play to the point where one of your friends fell asleep, or your parents switched off the internet because you were shouting too many naughty words. Xbox thrived because of the quick pick-up-and-play nature of the console, and it built a community around it. You didn't have to invest in an expensive, powerful gaming rig to play good online games or connect with other players. You could just get a 360 and still have the same fast-paced online experience as a PC game. Microsoft knew their audience wanted an easy and compelling online experience, and everything the 360 did reflected that. I mean, look at the exclusives. Halo 3, Left 4 Dead, Gears of War, each of these games had a strong multiplayer presence, so Microsoft kept appealing to the PC Lite audience that they cultivated. Xbox's appeal to the online gaming experience absolutely paid off. The Xbox 360 went on to sell over 84 million units and stayed ahead of the PS3 sales for most of its life. And even though Microsoft famously struggled in the Japanese market, the 360 still made its way into the top 10 best-selling consoles of all time. The 360 was so successful that not even mechanical issues could stop its success. Look, we're gonna have to talk about the infamous Red Ring of Death. Due to some crucial design flaws, the 360 was famous for overheating or other failures. When your 360 died, the infamous 3 red lights indicate you were struck with the Red Ring of Death, and you had to send your Xbox back to Microsoft for refurbishing. It was such a common issue that just saying the phrase, "My Xbox had the Red Ring of Death," was met with a despairing nod and a reassuring hug from other Xbox owners. The issue plagued the early 360 models so badly that it was common for players to go through up to 5 360 consoles because of how much they malfunctioned. Fortunately, Microsoft were fair and diligent, sending back an entirely new console when yours fried, while they scrambled to repair the old one. Despite this console-breaking error, the online experience was too good to hinder the 360's success. But it wasn't just gaming that made the 360 stand out, it was the implementation of other entertainment and social applications like Netflix, Twitter, and Facebook. With these additional apps, the user was given a more varied experience than just gaming. The Xbox became an all-in-one entertainment experience for the player. Xbox wanted to rule the online space. At first, the new features were very well received. You didn't need a smart TV, you could just plug in your Xbox 360 and stream TV. It was great, but like a mad king, Xbox's desire for control alienated their faithful audience and led to their downfall in their next move. When the Xbox One was showcased in 2013, Xbox forgot the most important rule to making a games console: make sure it has games. Microsoft marketed the Xbox One as a media hub and barely mentioned any unique IP. It wasn't a game showcase, it was a TV showcase.
TV. Sports TV.
Every decision that Xbox made seemed to be a middle finger to their core audience. Do you want backwards compatibility to play your old games? Nope, that's gone. Want to play it offline? No chance. The Xbox One has to be connected constantly. Did you want the console by itself without the Kinect peripheral? Too bad. You have to have the Kinect, and you'll have to pay extra because of it. The messaging was all wrong and made the new console feel like a step back from the 360.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device.
In no time at all, Xbox went from being a beloved console to a complete joke, to the point where even Sony was roasting Xbox's inability to share games. It was quite hard to believe, really. Xbox dominated a generation, then threw it all away in an afternoon. It seemed like Microsoft were intent on grabbing the biggest gun they could find and shooting themselves in the foot with it. In the trio of consoles, the Xbox should be the most powerful console, but it was less powerful than the PS4 and more expensive. How could you justify paying more? Worse yet, PlayStation's online was now just as good as Xbox's, and in some ways better, as Xbox's user interface became a confusing mess. The PS4 had stayed in its lane whilst adapting to modern online gaming, whereas Xbox completely careered off the road and were now sitting in a field, slamming a Kinect into a TV and trying to sell it as the new Xbox. Not the best move from them. This led to the Xbox One being decimated by the other consoles. The Xbox One sold an estimated 50 million units, but the PlayStation 4 outdid them twice over by selling 115 million PlayStation 4s. To add salt to the wound, the Nintendo Switch released 4 years after the Xbox One and outsold it in 2020. Xbox's main competitor, PlayStation, had annihilated the Xbox One and Nintendo's first real console for years, and had kicked it while it was down. Xbox was struggling to be relevant. The console itself wasn't even Xbox's biggest problem. The Xbox One was desperately lacking interesting new games to the caliber of PlayStation's God of War or the Switch's Breath of the Wild. Microsoft kept purchasing huge game publishers like Rare, Ninja Theory, and Mojang, but they were still failing to release anything to draw an audience. By owning Rare, Xbox had the developer who made such classics as Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye, but they were mostly condemned to making tacky Kinect games that appealed to families. Worse yet, the exclusives that were released just felt like more of the same. More Gears, more Halo, and more Forza. It just felt like an extended lifespan of the Xbox 360 opposed to a whole new console. Don't get me wrong, there are awesome games, and when Rare were given the chance to make a non-Kinect game, they made Sea of Thieves, a game which captures that iconic social Xbox experience perfectly. But when PlayStation reliably releases incredible games, Xbox's titles just felt outclassed. PlayStation and Nintendo kept doing their own thing, but Xbox wanted everything, and in doing so, had a full-on identity crisis and dethroned themselves. When Phil Spencer took over Xbox in 2014, it was like an angel had stepped down from heaven to smite the unholy abomination that was the Kinect and anyone that caused it to be spawned. With Phil Spencer taking over, the Xbox was finally heading in the right direction, towards gaming again. As if with his own bare hands, Phil Spencer pried apart the Kinect from the Xbox One, finally allowing you to purchase the console without it, which also brought the price down. Backwards compatibility came back, and in 2017, players were able to play Xbox originals again, but with improved visuals. Xbox had finally started undoing all the problems they made for themselves, and focused on the most important thing to the console, games. It was a good start, but it wasn't until the new version of the Xbox One, the Xbox One X, came out that Microsoft finally went full circle. Or full box? The Xbox One X re-established the console with the strengths of the original. The Xbox One had become the most powerful console once again, and gave players features they didn't even know they wanted yet. If this was a step in the right direction, then the release of Xbox's Game Pass was a triple somersault in that direction. Announced in 2017, Game Pass is a subscription service which would allow players to pay a monthly fee to get access to a massive library of games. Microsoft had burned their hands trying to force the industry into digital media back in 2013 with the Xbox One, but the industry had undertaken quite the evolution in 4 short years. Now, gamers are no longer as focused on owning the physical media of their games. Sorry, GameStop. As many of them are fully online anyway or more easily accessible from downloading. The future they saw with the Xbox One is here, and now Game Pass is set to capitalize on it. It wouldn't be foolish to assume that normally a game subscription would include a bunch of bargain bin titles and outdated games. And if the Game Pass only included low-tier games, then Game Pass would have been put into the fall section of this video. But as Game Pass includes day one releases of blockbuster games in its service, like the upcoming Back 4 Blood and Halo Infinite, it's too good to pass up. Movies saw this same evolution from renting DVDs from Blockbuster to streaming everything from Netflix. And it seems to be Microsoft's plan to set a strong foothold in this market. They're offering new sign-ons to try it out for 3 months for £1, and then only £10 after the trial period. A ridiculously cheap price. In a time when Nintendo are selling a HD coat of paint on a Wii game for full retail price, Xbox Game Pass certainly restores some of Xbox's lost honor. But just like how the original Xbox sold for such a cheap price that Microsoft barely made a profit, Game Pass seems to be in the same spirit as Xbox's old business tactic. Presently, to account for the developers, Microsoft will partially or even fully cover the cost of the game up front, and then allow the developer to showcase their game with a day one release on Game Pass. Microsoft, at present, aren't making a profit from Game Pass, but that's because they're looking to get as many subscribers as possible. According to games industry analyst Daniel Ahmad, once the service has 50 million subscribers, Game Pass will be sustainable for everyone involved. It's a bold premise, but considering Game Pass has already over 23 million subscribers as of April 2021, it doesn't seem too far-fetched to see Game Pass reach its target. And thus, Xbox completes its redemption arc. After a tumultuous few years, now under new direction, Xbox is separating itself from the pack again, offering a unique entry into the games industry. This generation, the Series X is aiming to also have another key element the Xbox One desperately lacked: exclusives. Xbox is looking to bolster their gigantic games developer library with Bethesda, ID, Machine Games, and Arcane Studios, to name a few, which should cook up some interesting exclusives in the coming years. It looks like Xbox has buried its TV-filled past and is once again becoming the powerhouse hardcore gaming experience that we all know and love, promising for an optimistic future. But I swear, Xbox, if you try and sneak a Kinect in again, I'll send that freaky little virtual boy Milo to your house. So, what do you guys think? Are you going to get back with your Xbox? Let us know in the comments below, and thank you very much for watching.